The late afternoon sun filtered softly through black steel-framed windows, casting golden light across centuries-old red bricks. Tucked away in the quiet heart of Sullivan Canyon, Diane Keaton's timeless brick home stood like a living memoir, every corner whispering stories of elegance, courage, and soul. Today, we step through that gate, not just into a house, but into the final sanctuary of a Hollywood legend, a place where beauty lived in silence, where every brick bore witness to the legacy of a woman who lived, loved, and inspired until her very last breath. Before the world knew her as the wide-eyed, suit-clad enigma of Annie Hall, Diane Keaton was simply Diane Hall, born on January 5, 1946, in the suburbs of Los Angeles. Raised by Dorothy, a creative homemaker and amateur photographer, and Jack, a real estate broker with Irish blood and a builder's pragmatism, Diane was the eldest of four. But even then, it was clear, this little girl wasn't meant for an ordinary life. What first planted the seed? Some say it was watching her mother Dorothy win the Mrs. Los Angeles homemaker pageant, a glamorous, performative spectacle that opened young Diane's eyes to the magic of spotlight and applause. Others point to her obsession with Katharine Hepburn, a woman who defied convention and embodied independence. Either way, by her teenage years, Diane was already dreaming of bigger stages. After graduating from Santa Ana High School in 1963, Diane flirted briefly with traditional paths, college, classes, and community, but that wasn't her rhythm. 1 year into acting school, she dropped everything and moved to Manhattan. In the heart of New York City, she enrolled at the neighborhood playhouse and immersed herself in the Meisner technique, learning that true acting wasn't about the spotlight, it was about connection, presence, vulnerability. And then came Broadway. In Play It Again, Sam Diane lit up the stage with a mix of charm and awkwardness that felt refreshingly human. The critics took notice. But it wasn't until her film debut in Lovers and Other Strangers that Hollywood began to listen. She was quirky, she was funny, she was different. Then, in 1972, she stepped into cinematic history with The Godfather. Cast as Kay Adams, the innocent caught in the shadowy world of Michael Corleone, Diane brought depth to a role that could have easily been forgettable. Her performance was subtle yet magnetic. As the camera lingered on her expressive eyes, audiences saw not just a character, but a woman torn between love and disillusionment. And that, perhaps, became Diane's hallmark, portraying women who felt real. In the years that followed, Diane became Woody Allen's muse, starring in Sleeper, Love, and Death, and eventually the cultural earthquake that was Annie Hall. Her performance, so natural, so effortlessly her, earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. But more than that, it redefined what a leading lady could be. She wasn't the bombshell. She wasn't the damsel. She was Diane. Blazers, vests, wide-brimmed hats, and all. The world didn't just watch Annie Hall, they became her. But Diane wasn't done evolving. After parting ways with Allen, she navigated a sea of ambitious roles, from political thrillers to romantic dramas. Not all were hits. The Little Drummer Girl faltered, but when The First Wives Club hit theaters in 1996, she was back on top. Audiences loved her wit, her heart, and that unmistakable voice. She tried her hand at directing Unstrung Heroes, and in the 2000s, returned to rom-com royalty alongside Jack Nicholson in Something's Gotta Give. Even in her 60s, she redefined on-screen desire, showing the world that romance has no expiration date. She wasn't just acting, she was teaching. About resilience, about reinvention, about the beauty of aging unapologetically. Her voice appeared again in Finding Dory, her face again on red carpets. Yet behind the fame, Diane's focus began to shift. She turned to restoring old homes, photographing decay and beauty, raising 2 adopted children on her own, and slowly, gracefully, pulling away from the glare of the spotlight. It was never about staying relevant. It was about staying authentic. And so, with each passing year, she allowed herself to become what few in Hollywood ever dare: quiet. But that quiet was filled with intention. It echoed through the brick walls of her Sullivan Canyon home, through the pages of her memoirs, through the laughter at family dinners. And in that stillness, we found the final act of a life lived fully. Because the spotlight never truly defined her. What did? The walls she built with her own hands, the spaces she filled with stories, and the home where she chose to spend her final days, in peace, in style, and in a beauty entirely her own. Estate in Sullivan Canyon. Tucked away in the leafy quiet of Sullivan Canyon, far from the chaos of Hollywood sets and flashing paparazzi bulbs, Diane Keaton found her final sanctuary. Not a mansion screaming for attention, but a handcrafted love letter to history, texture, and soul. It took 1,278 days, nearly 3.5 years, to bring her vision to life. The result? A 2,500 square meter fortress of memory, wrapped in 75,000 antique clay bricks, each one chosen with the care of a sculptor molding legacy into stone. The bricks weren't just bricks, they were stories. Shipped from 18th century buildings in Chicago, every one bore the mark of time: cracks, soot, fingerprints of a past life. Diane had initially planned to paint over the exposed brick exterior, but once she felt their texture, once she saw how sunlight danced across their surfaces, she changed her mind. She left them raw, proud, unfiltered, just like herself. From the moment you step through the oversized gate, you're enveloped in warmth. There's no dramatic marble staircase or crystal chandelier here. Instead, there's a sense of grounding, of intention, of a woman who understood that beauty lies in imperfection. And then the kitchen. Diane's heart. She called it the Breakfast of Champions, borrowing the name from her favorite Pinterest board. A custom oversized kitchen island anchors the room, adorned with steel mesh cabinetry and pendant lights salvaged from an old chicken coop. Every piece, every finish tells you this space wasn't curated for show. It was lived in, laughed in, dreamed in. Above, 4 massive skylights bathe the room in ever-shifting sunlight. Diane once said, "Each day, the sky paints a different light across my countertops, my stove, my books, even the fireplace." The living areas hum with what she called industrial romance. Exposed wood beams, matte black light fixtures, reclaimed finishes, and textured walls that feel both rustic and sophisticated. Upstairs, a small library overflows with dog-eared books and photographs, snapshots of life, love, and memory. There's no need for extravagant art. The home is the artwork. Every corner speaks softly, echoing Diane's essence: thoughtful, grounded, endlessly curious. It was never just about design. It was about creating a feeling, a mood, a soul. This wasn't a place built to impress. It was a place built to remember. And just like her home, Diane's car collection wasn't about flash. It was about story. Every wheel she turned carried her closer to something meaningful. Let's open the garage door and see what lived behind it. Cars. Never one to follow the rules of Hollywood glamour, Diane's choice in cars wasn't about showmanship. It was about substance, comfort, and the quiet luxury of self-expression. Her most striking ride? A black Bentley Continental GTC, elegant, low-slung, and unapologetically refined. With a twin-turbocharged W12 engine and a top speed nearing 200 miles per hour, it was a car born to conquer both boulevards and back roads. But Diane didn't drive it to make an entrance. She drove it because it felt right. The soft leather seats, the silent hum of power beneath the hood, the way the world seemed to soften behind its windows. This was where she found a different kind of peace. Friends recall seeing her cruising down Sunset Boulevard, scarf in the wind, sunglasses perched just so, classical jazz playing faintly from the stereo. In a city where loudness is currency, Diane mastered the art of quiet power. Then came the BMW 3 Series, sleek and agile, just like her comedic timing. This wasn't the flashiest car in her collection, but it was one of the most her. Built with precision, the 3 Series is known for its balance and grace on the road. Diane often took it out for solo drives through Topanga Canyon or along the Pacific Coast Highway. No destination, no entourage, just her, the steering wheel, and the road unfolding like an old screenplay. Nestled in the garage beside it was the Mercedes-Benz G-Class, boxy, bold, and unshakable. This vehicle stood like a fortress on wheels, a nod to Diane's strength and her love for structure. With its all-terrain capability and armored feel, it matched the aura of a woman who had endured, evolved, and emerged even more formidable. When she wanted to disappear into the hills or escape the demands of fame, this was the car she trusted to carry her. But perhaps most revealing of all was the Toyota pickup, humble, rugged, and completely without pretense. It was the kind of truck you'd expect to see on a farm, not in the driveway of an Oscar-winning legend. And that's exactly why she loved it. She used it during the construction of her Sullivan Canyon home, hauling reclaimed bricks, salvaged wood, and lighting fixtures dug up from flea markets. That old truck, layered in dust and purpose, symbolized something more. That Diane Keaton never waited for others to build her world. She built it herself. Her cars weren't just transportation. They were companions in the quiet hours. Witnesses to whispered thoughts, morning coffee runs, late-night drives with music echoing through the silence. She never spoke about horsepower or 0 to 60 specs. She spoke about feeling, texture, how a steering wheel felt beneath her fingertips, how a car's silence could calm her. And behind the wheel or on screen, Diane Keaton carved out a life that was both rich and intentional. But how did that translate into the fortune she quietly accumulated over the decades? The answer is layered, just like her legacy. For someone who lived without flashing wealth or chasing the spotlight, Diane Keaton amassed a fortune that many in Hollywood would envy. Not through spectacle, but through strategy, longevity, and a deep understanding of value, both artistic and financial. At the time of her passing in October 2025, Diane Keaton's net worth was estimated at $100 million. But that figure didn't just come from blockbuster paychecks or luxury brand deals. It was the result of a lifetime of work marked by thoughtful decisions, quiet hustle, and relentless reinvention. But beyond the balance sheets and bank accounts, her wealth was best reflected in her freedom. Financial independence allowed her to adopt 2 children as a single mother, to retire on her own terms, and to create art without compromise. Her fortune wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It existed in the spaces she built, the stories she told, the legacy she crafted, brick by brick, word by word, roll by roll. And just as her money built homes and secured futures, Diane Keaton used her voice and her wallet to quietly shape a better world. Her giving wasn't performative. It was personal. And it reached far beyond the red carpet. Philanthropy. Diane Keaton never needed a spotlight to do something meaningful. Her charity work didn't come with press releases or gala gowns. Instead, it reflected exactly who she was: thoughtful, deliberate, and deeply human. While others gave to be seen, Diane gave because she felt. Her passion for children's welfare came first. Long before she became a mother herself, Diane supported organizations like the Alliance for Children's Rights and the National Children's Cancer Research Alliance. She believed in protecting the vulnerable, in standing beside those who didn't have a voice, and she channeled her resources toward creating safer, healthier futures for kids who were often forgotten. That desire came into even sharper focus when she adopted her 2 children, Dexter and Duke. Suddenly, the cause was no longer abstract. It was personal. She once said, Motherhood taught me how much every child deserves a stable, loving home, and how many don't have that. Her contributions, often anonymous, helped fund family placement programs and cancer research trials across the country. But her empathy didn't stop with humans. Diane was also a fierce advocate for animal welfare. As a longtime board member and spokesperson for the Helen Woodward Animal Center, she worked tirelessly to promote pet adoption, humane treatment of animals, and stronger protections for wildlife. She championed the Big Cat Public Safety Act, supporting legislation that sought to ban the private ownership of exotic cats, a cause few Hollywood stars dared to touch. Her vegetarian lifestyle was a natural extension of this compassion. "How can I say I love animals," she once asked, "and then turn around and eat them?" It wasn't about being trendy, it was about integrity. And then there was her lifelong love, architecture. Through her deep involvement with the Los Angeles Conservancy and the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Diane poured energy and funds into saving cultural landmarks, old theaters, forgotten homes, relics of LA's architectural past. She saw buildings the way she saw people, full of stories, worthy of preservation, aching to be remembered. Many of the homes she restored over the years weren't just flipped for profit. They were saved from demolition, brought back to life with care, and given a second chance to stand proudly in a city that too often erases its own history. She didn't need to build a foundation or wear a ribbon to make an impact. Her giving lived in small gestures: a handwritten check to a local rescue shelter, a quiet visit to a children's hospital, a letter to a senator urging stronger conservation laws. And while some saw her as private or aloof, those closest to Diane knew her as someone who gave quietly, but completely. A woman whose generosity was stitched into the fabric of her life, not as a performance, but as a principle. Because behind every cause she championed, every brick she saved, and every life she touched, there was simply Diane. Off-screen, at home, living a life of depth, love, and rhythm. Let's step inside that private world, where legacy met laughter, and elegance met the everyday. Personal life. Diane Keaton's personal life never fit into Hollywood's carefully packaged scripts. She didn't marry, she didn't settle down in the conventional sense, and yet, in every sense that mattered, she built a life full of love, meaning, and fiercely chosen solitude. Her relationships were the stuff of magazine covers: Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, each man iconic, each chapter romantic, complex, and unforgettable. But none of them became her husband. "I never found a man I wanted to live with as much as I wanted to live alone," she once confessed with a knowing smile. It wasn't cynicism, it was clarity. When she adopted her daughter Dexter in 1996, followed by her son Duke in 2001, Diane stepped into a new kind of love. A quiet, unconditional, and grounding love. As a single mother, she wasn't looking for a picture-perfect family portrait. She was building a home filled with books, art, laughter, and the kind of attention that doesn't always make headlines. Her children became her heart. She cooked for them, drove them to school, showed them old movies, and filled their world with creativity and warmth. Hollywood could wait. For Diane, motherhood wasn't a side note. It was the role of a lifetime. She documented her days in photographs, portraits of faded flowers, textures of decaying walls, silhouettes in morning light. It was her way of saying, "This moment matters." Even as the world rushed forward, Diane lingered in what others overlooked. She surrounded herself with a circle of old friends and kindred spirits, fellow artists, architects, writers, people who didn't mind the silence, who understood that conversation didn't need to be constant to be meaningful. Her home was a haven not just for her, but for anyone lucky enough to be invited in. Even as her health quietly declined in the final year, she remained true to herself. No dramatic farewells, no pitying updates. Just Diane, living with dignity, putting the final brushstrokes on a life well painted. In her final days, she still laughed, still listened to the birds in the canyon, still lit candles at dusk. The rhythm of home didn't stop, it simply softened. When news of her passing broke, tributes flooded in, not just from directors and co-stars, but from neighbors, bookshop owners, and animal shelters. People who had glimpsed her kindness in everyday encounters. Because that was the truth of Diane Keaton. Off-screen, she was never acting. She was always exactly who she appeared to be. Thoughtful, eccentric, soulful, and above all, present. Her life wasn't filled with noise. It was filled with meaning. And long after the lights dimmed and the cameras faded, her legacy continues. In every frame, every brick, every child she helped, every stray dog she sheltered, and every quiet morning she once greeted with grace. If Diane Keaton's life touched you through a performance, a photograph, or the quiet wisdom she brought into the world, let her legacy live on. Share her story, revisit her films, preserve beauty where you find it, and above all, live with heart. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate a life well lived and a spirit that never truly says goodbye.